Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the Shankly Sessions, the Liverpool podcast we bring you each and every week. If you could head out to YouTube, the upper tier, of course, hit a subscribe on it, hit the bell notification, drop a like on the video, all that kind of good stuff. Tonight, we're going to bring you kind of a match reaction to the Man City game yesterday. I was busy. I was actually working yesterday, so I couldn't do it yesterday because I was only getting kind of snippets of the game and stuff like that, but I wanted to actually watch the game before I did a reaction to it, which is not kind of really like an instant reaction kind of thing. It's more kind of maybe more of an overall discussion about Liverpool and where we find ourselves at the moment. And of course, if anyone wants to come on, you're more than welcome to come on if you want to chat about Liverpool or Man City or the season or your team or whatever it is. You're more than welcome to come on. I can drop a link in the chat. So that's the link. If anyone wants to come on and talk about their team and maybe have a bit of a therapy session or whatever it is, there's no problem there. That's your link there. Anyone who wants to come on, I'll see you there in the background. You're more than welcome to come on and chat all things Liverpool or your own team. But I think it's kind of getting to a stage now where it's getting a little bit toxic, as they say. Now, look, and hats off to lads on Coppish as well, Matt and Cal. They were talking about it yesterday in their reaction as well. And I've said it a number of times this season. I don't have a problem with Liverpool losing. I've never had a problem with Liverpool losing. I have a problem with Liverpool losing in a certain type of way. And yesterday in the second half, we've seen it again. White flag comes out, surrender, capitulation, the whole lot, disaster, tore us under. Many words we could use for it, but really, really poor. And we're going to get into talking about that, what the difference is kind of first half and second half. We can talk about the lineup. We can talk about players at the moment that we have, and we could talk about starting the season needing maybe a midfielder or two. We could talk about signing Artem Mello, who was injury prone and hadn't kicked the ball since May, as a panic stopgap when we realised we had a midfield problem. We could talk about the fact that we spent money on strikers when we needed midfielders, even though the striker gamble kind of worked out with Jota getting injured and Luis Diaz getting injured and stuff like that. It kind of paved over really the real issue of where we had spent the money and stuff like that. We have to have a conversation about Jurgen Klopp. And I'm not Klopp out. But we have to have a conversation about it. And we'll talk about some of the quotes coming out of yesterday post-match, which are kind of bewildering. But the sad thing about it is they're not shocking, but kind of bewildering insofar as it's hard to understand. How could I put it? Because I love the guy. I went 30 years without a league title and he delivered a league title to us. So it's very hard when you're talking about someone in this way, but it's kind of, it's gotten very worrying. Some of the comments that come out now post-match in terms of how he viewed the game as opposed to how we viewed the game. And I suppose that the conversation goes as far as to say, well, if we can see it, why can't he see it? And let me know if you think we're wrong or you think he's right or whatever it is, or you know what I mean. But it's really concerning. And yesterday probably was the most deflated I've seen him this season in terms of not understanding or getting a handle on what has kind of happened or what is happening or what's unfolding this season. And the worrying thing is, I mean, if you park all the FSG stuff, look, we know the story with FSG. And if you park all the injuries as well and you look at the results and what's happened, I don't think, with the exception of yesterday maybe, and with the exception of Madrid this season, I don't think there's a team that has taken to the field where I've thought that we couldn't get a win or a draw out of a game, that we would get a loss. Um, so that's why I talk about, like, right, we know all the issues with FSG, but we have to put them over here, and this is what we have here, and we know all the issues with the injuries, and we have to put them over here. And yes, they're a factor, and yes, FSG is a factor, but this is what we have over here. Now, when we look at that and we look at some of the teams that have been picked to go out onto the pitch, and I'm going to probably shock people tonight in some of the things that I say, but when we look at some of the teams that have taken to the pitch, I mean, did we truly believe that Liverpool team that took to the pitch against Bournemouth couldn't beat Bournemouth? Do we believe that the team that took to the pitch against Nottingham Forest couldn't beat Nottingham Forest? Do we think that the team that took to the pitch against Leeds in the Christmas period couldn't beat Leeds? Brentford, who we know are a very good team, we know we'd have to battle them hard, but we believed we were the better team and we could beat them. If you look at the Wolves games, if you look at the Brighton games, I don't think we were going onto those pitches. So maybe in hindsight, after we had played them a couple of times, maybe we were thinking they're kind of a bit of a bogey team for us and stuff like that. So it's going to be a little bit difficult. But the manner in which we lost, and this is what I've been talking about most of the season, I've been talking about the manner in which we have taken to the pitch and the attitude in which we have portrayed on the pitch in game is what has let us down a lot this season. And I think that's a real concern. And let's be honest, if you talk about just yesterday in isolation, I think most Liverpool fans, if you're absolutely brutally honest with yourself, wouldn't have expected to get anything out of that game yesterday. Because quite frankly, they've better players than us. Let's be honest here. Let's call a spade here. They've better players than us. And what we've done is we've rided the crest of a wave of togetherness and team and Klopp's motivation and sometimes tactics to sometimes get us over the line. So this season, what has happened is, let's call it as we see it, there's no team. There's very little bond there. I don't really want to see any more training videos of lads giggling and cuddling and hugging and bonding like they think we're bonding until something goes wrong on the pitch, and then it's staring and finger pointing and arms in the air and all this kind of thing. All that stuff during the week then goes out the window, and I think that's a real concern. And I just think it's a weird one for me, insofar as how it has all just got so toxic and disjointed, and that togetherness that was there, us against the world. This is how Klopp always portrayed it. You know what I mean? It was us to go out there and prove the world wrong. It was Liverpool for years were in the shadow of United and Chelsea and City and Arsenal, and we stepped out of that shadow, and it was us against the rest of the world, basically. And that's what we had to do. And it was just, this season we've come up short because we haven't acted like a team. We've tried many different combinations of playing partners, and our hands being forced in terms of injuries and all that kind of stuff. And it just for one reason or another, it hasn't gelled together. And for Jurgen, tactically, we've come up short at times against teams. At times when he's tried to change things and deploy a different tactic, players are confused. They haven't got a clue what's happened, or what's happening, or what's expected of them, or what role they're playing. And that's a huge concern for me, because what that shows me is, it shows me that a team is being badly prepared for the game, because the real good coaches out there, and even the ones that are coming up now, you look at Eddie Howe doing a fabulous job at Newcastle. Is there any player at Eddie Howe Is there any player at Newcastle doesn't fully understand his job when he gets out onto the pitch? I doubt it. Is there any player playing for Brentford that doesn't understand his job when he goes out on the pitch and gets lost? Is there any player from Brighton doesn't understand that? And we could go down and down and down and down through the list. I'm sure Aston Villa is the same with Unai Emery. These guys are meticulous in their preparation, and Klopp has been the same. Just give me 1 second there. So it's an interesting one insofar as where we find ourselves, where there's a lack of unity, there's a lack of team spirit. Mane obviously moved on. There's a number of players that just they're kind of coming to the end, or there's a realization that maybe they're nothing more now than squad players, or maybe players that have to move on, or maybe in order to create this total rebuild, as I call it, that Klopp now has to undertake. And that's really how the season has gone when you summarise it. We've gone from, needing maybe 1 or 2 midfielders to now needing maybe 7 players. And maybe needing a lot more, because, as I said, as the weeks go on, the situation we find ourselves in gets more and more and more compounded, to the point where it's going to take more than a couple of windows to fix it, which means we're going to find ourselves out here in sort of no man's land for a period of time. And during that period of time, players over here that we're using are putting more mileage on their bodies, more years out there. And obviously it's going to be difficult as well at times to attract in the right quality of player that you want. And we know the problem here with Jurgen as well is that the problem is he's quite stubborn in his targets. He generally has a player that he wants, and if he doesn't get that player, he'll sit. He doesn't instigate plan B, and that's why we find ourselves in a little bit of a problem here around midfield, because we were all in on Tchouaméni. He chose to go to Real Madrid, and plan B didn't exist. Plan B was, okay, we're not going to do it. And he had a look at the midfielders that he had, and he thought that the midfield pool that he had there was more than enough. Even though when you look at it on the face of it, you've got Harvey there, who's only a young lad, who's trying to make that step up. You had Hendo, who we know was getting on, not quite the Jordan Henderson that he was. We know Milner, although he comes in and always does a very professional job, but again, he's 37 years of age. You have Fabinho, who has had a massive drop off that maybe we could or couldn't have predicted, who knows. You have Thiago, who we know is injury prone. We have Curtis Jones, who we know he doesn't fancy. We have Ox, who we know was leaving. We've Naby Keita. That ship sailed how long ago? And that's kind of our pool of midfielders, if you like, somewhat. And then, of course, Arthur Melo came in, and the less said about that, the better. But it's real concerning, because we were staring into this week. We've Chelsea up next on Tuesday night at the Bridge. Then we've got Arsenal at home on Sunday at Anfield. Arsenal, who are on fire at the moment, who have been going against the grain this season and getting the results that they wanted. But it's going to be really, really difficult in terms of trying to recover from this situation, because it's beginning to look like a total rebuild. Because when you look at yesterday, let's bring up the team. The team I'll show you be at Anfield, but it's the team that played. But if you look at that team, who walks off there with their head held high yesterday? Okay, Alisson, you could say, put in a bit of a shift, but might have done better maybe for one of the goals, maybe. Cody, who I think put in a decent shift yesterday. Salah, who took his chance well, but must be very frustrated. Jota, who got the assist, but kind of what else? Hendo, shocking first half. Harvey, well out of his depth. Fabinho, trying to put in a shift, but struggling. Van Dijk, really struggling since he came back off the injury. Not quite the same Van Dijk. Konate, didn't have a great game yesterday, by his standards. And also struggled somewhat against Ireland as well. If you remember the international game as well, if you watch that, he wasn't quite up to it as well. We put them under a lot of pressure, and for a team of their stature, France, that shouldn't be the case. You've got Robbo, who this season has been kind of getting away with it. And it's kind of, I don't know, because of Robbo's effort. And because his effort, you see, is kind of tangible, and you don't get that kind of Robbo doesn't tend to kind of throw his bathwater, throw his toys out with the bathwater type of thing when there's an issue and stuff like that. So when you talk about the tangent between him and Trent, and that tangent is so important to us, those two players, the way they switch to play, the way one sits and one goes, and the way they kind of nearly, even on opposite sides of the pitch, they back up each other in terms of that rhythm and that tangent of the team, has been really missing badly this season. Robbo has been way off where he should be. And Costas, when he's come in, at times he's done okay, but just been a little bit limited and stuff like that. He's a decent backup for Robbo when Robbo's playing really, really well if he picks up an injury, but the drop-off is still there to be seen. He's come in a couple of times recently, and he hasn't been at it at all. Trent is the real one that's a kind of a dilemma at the moment, in terms of a lot of people are talking about, well, if you switch him into midfield, but if you switch him into midfield, what do you do there? Are you moving a problem from there to there? And also, the way we play, our midfielders are expected to do a lot of defensive work in terms of shadowing that back four, and in terms of providing that cover. If we play with those wing backs the way we do, and that's a real problem there as well, because Trent will still be expected to do a lot of defensive work and expel a lot of energy that way. Just because you move him from where he is into midfield doesn't give him a license to just bomb forward and do his own thing and just sit. As you can see, normally when we're playing and we're on our game, you'll see a lot of the time when Trent does go forward and all, Hendo's normally on this side and he drops in to provide that cover and stuff like that, or Fabinho will come across or something. So they're always still working hard. So like going into midfield doesn't negate half your game, which is defending when you don't have the ball. And that's part of what's missing. So it kind of negates that argument of Trent going into midfield. Let's take some comments. Breaking news: Graham Potter sacked by Chelsea now. Interesting, but not surprising. And Acer's back in again. United getting Europa League next season. Interesting call. I still think they have enough in them to get top four. I wouldn't be panicking quite yet. Eno's in the comments. What's the crack, Niall? All good, Eno. All good. And Acer's United record against top 9 teams away fixtures, 9 losses this season. Yeah, absolutely. But the home form is pretty good. And Klopp seems to be a problem these days. Yeah, he seems to. There's issues raising their head there, and the problem is Liverpool fans don't really want to discuss those kind of things. They want to throw shade at FSG and throw shade at injuries and throw shade at players and all that kind of thing. But the reality is the manager's there to manage. John Henry ain't picking these teams. John Henry ain't deciding. He's deciding maybe on the value of money that's available to spend, but he's not necessarily deciding where it's being spent. John Henry is not signing Gakpo. He's not signing Darwin Núñez. He's not signing Arthur Melo on loan. You know what I mean? We have to be realistic about these things. Eno back in again. Didn't expect the match yesterday to have gone down that way. Not necessarily, but it's just it's just the manner in which we lost that just sucks the confidence out of us. You know, if we lost yesterday 2-1 and we put up a good battle and we were creating chances and Ederson had a really good day between the sticks, we could accept that and we could say, okay, I can accept that. But that's not really what happens, you know what I mean? And that's the real problem. Craig, how you doing, my man? Good to see you there. All right, no, the first time watching the Shankly sessions live, was looking for a favour off Liverpool. Sadly, didn't happen. Do us a favour next week and roll over. Man, it's a given. It's a given, mate, isn't it? It's an absolute given. Look, Arsenal have been absolutely, going right against the grain this season, playing some lovely football. They remind me very much of Liverpool actually when we were at it. There's a togetherness there. There's a willingness. There's a battle there to fight hard for each other. There's a level of performance that's expected there. There's a nice blend of youth and experience now, which Arteta is absolutely responsible for, and hats off to him. And I said it today. I did a short today with Jesus on the channel. I think Arsenal are champions elect. I really do. And good luck to them as well. I've said it here many times on the podcast. If I didn't follow Liverpool, I'd probably follow Arsenal. I think that Wenger era was absolutely sublime. And even before him with George Graham and stuff like that and all, I always loved the way Arsenal play and how they went about their business. Yesterday, yeah, absolutely. It was just, man, don't even get me started on it. It's high time that players go back to the drawing board and start playing football that was used to. No more showing off, no more injuries, maybe less injuries, proper football. Yeah, I think what's happened there, Ian, and we spoke about it before. I know you'd like to go back a bit of old school and stuff like that, but the problem is, I think through sports science, and I also think through the availability of information and statistical data and all this kind of stuff, the game has gotten very scientific and very complex, and it's not as easy anymore now to say it's just 2 11s going out there on the pitch and stuff like that. It's become very much more tactical, very much more kind of like a chess battle based kind of thing, and that's why managers and players get paid this huge amount of money now compared to the old days. Quick talk about the game. I suppose if we look at the game, of course, we got off to a decent start, created a couple of chances, looked like we were well in the game. Mo Salah pops up at 1 in 17 minutes. Beautiful finish from him. Jota with the assist, although I think if you look at it, you'll think it's a little bit fortuitous in getting the assist. But the ball from Trent to get it going was absolutely sublime, Trent-esque. And then, of course, the stupidity of Mo Salah getting booked, which was absolutely ridiculous. Just, a bit of petulance there and frustration. He was getting absolutely molested by that player out there in front of the linesman. The linesman with no reaction at all. So you can understand that. On 27, Julian Alvarez popped up and scored the equaliser. Grealish with the assist. An absolutely fabulous team goal. And if you remember just before this, Salah had a breakaway where he had a chance to make it 2-0 and Grealish got back. He was the one who got back and broke it down, got the ball off him. But then I think a minute or 2 minutes of that, they were up the other end scoring with Grealish getting the assist. That's the kind of fight and energy and application that you need at the very highest level. People who are willing to put in those hard yards to make sure that you do the things that you should do. And it was 1-1. And then we'll talk about some of the fouls that happened and stuff like that and whether Rodri should have been sent off and stuff. And we'll get into that probably because I have some quotes from Jurgen Klopp post-match that we probably need to discuss as well. Acer's back in the comments. Julian Nagelsmann odds on to become Chelsea new manager, bookie's favourite. Yeah, I think that was the case anyway. Spoke to Eno over the weekend about it. I think that was even our thoughts on Friday, even prior to the Villa game, that they needed to make a decision on Graham Potter quickly before Nagelsmann was snapped up somewhere, so. Mad stuff. Be very interesting, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be mad if Chelsea and take in Nagelsmann and Chelsea and Bayern meet each other? That'd be kind of cool. That'd be feisty. That'd be well worth looking into, wouldn't it? Kind of tasty. Then the second half we come out and I suppose we should talk about the first half. A lot of our success in the first half was we kind of played that back forward and there, kept it kind of tight, but we We flanked it with the middle three in the midfield as well. So we were nice and compact and tight. So we weren't giving up a huge amount of space in that first half, playing a bit of counter-attacking football as well. So no problem giving Man City some of the ball and stuff like that to play with. But we were solid in our defending and stuff like that. And we also created that gap as well for Cody there to pop into as well, so he could receive the ball for the counter attacks and stuff like that. So, and it worked really, really well first half. Now, I would love to know if there was an Amazon documentary like on the All or Nothing thing. I know Klopp would never agree to it. He says so he'd leave before it happens. But I'd love to be a fly on the wall in that changing room to see what was said, because we came out second half. We played a much higher line, arguably against players that are way more skillful and technically astute than us. And we got caught. The De Bruyne goal, Mahrez, what a breakaway. Unbelievable. Again, another really good team goal. Gundogan again made a 3-1, and at that stage, at 53 minutes, we were done within 8 minutes of restarting the game. The game was done and dusted. Ace was back in. No chance. Real Madrid will be relishing playing Chelsea after today's performance by Madrid. Yeah, I know. Madrid are awesome. But listen, wouldn't be the first time. Let's see. And it wouldn't be the first time that Chelsea made a change of manager and went on to win a Champions League. I'm not saying that will happen, but I'm saying it wouldn't be the first time. And then on 74 minutes, Jack Grealish rounded out. I think Jack Grealish was man of the match. Kevin De Bruyne with the assist. Mahrez with the assist for De Bruyne's goal. And at 4-1 then, it was beginning to look like it could get very embarrassing. But what really happened was, in the second half, we came out, we played that high line. And because we played that high line, we gave them loads of space to play into the channels and behind us. And they took full advantage of that, and they opened us up like a pull can of tuna. It was no problem to them at all. And in truth, and Klopp said this, the one thing I did agree with him after the game was, he said that it could have been a lot more, that they took their foot off the gas somewhat, and they did. This could have been 5-6-7-1 really, if City were really at it and Pep wanted to really turn the screw on us, because we absolutely dissolved in that second half. And that's our real concern then, because and we've seen it this season, because we dissolve like this, and now we've got Chelsea at the bridge. I don't know what's going to happen now. I'm just hearing while I was live about the managerial thing, so I'll have a look at it afterwards. But because that's the way we had, we've got Chelsea up next. Would you fancy us getting something at the bridge? I wouldn't. I looked at them yesterday against Aston Villa, and although Aston Villa got the win and they were value for their 2-0 and stuff like that, Chelsea created a lot of chances. I think it was 20. When I looked at it, I think the stats were 27 shots to 5, I think, in favour of Chelsea yesterday. But just so blunt up front, but definitely creating chances. But the problem for Chelsea is, or for people playing Chelsea like us, they will eventually play a team and give them an absolute beating, because it will come together. Acers. City were absolutely amazing yesterday. Yeah, definitely second half anyway. Definitely second half, I would agree. They popped the ball around and they made us look championship level, to be honest. So yeah, it was just, let's talk about some of these post-match quotes then, because I don't necessarily really want to talk about the game, because the game was just so disappointing. We know, listen, this is what happened. Look, went out first half, nice and compact, got 1-0 up, coughed up a goal that we shouldn't have really. Just our own poor defensive marking again, and also not tackling and breaking down the play when we should. And then in second half, we went out, and for some reason or another, we played a high line. I can only assume we were instructed to do that, that's tactically what was decided at half time, that was going to be the course of action. I don't believe we just went out ourselves and did it. But just 1 second there now. And but that's the way it went, and that's the story of the game. So the loss, I think, wasn't a surprise. The manner of the capitulation again in the second half, probably was. So if you look at some of these quotes, let's talk about Jurgen Klopp, and let's have a little bit of a conversation about this, because I think it really needs to be had. And again, I would say I'm not Klopp out, but I do think when things go astray, we can't just keep on waving injuries. We can't just keep on waving FSG. We can't just keep on waving, that we didn't have a doctor for 6 months. We can't just keep on talking about Julian Ward wanting to leave. We can't just keep on talking about these things. We have to be realistic, and we have to talk about the manager and the assistant that are there managing the team week in, week out, through the training, seeing everything that's going on, putting out the different lineups that are out there, setting up the formation and the tactics every week. That's what these guys are responsible for. And a lot of times this season, we've got it wrong, both from a starting position and also our in-game management. So here's some of the comments yesterday that alerted me to being very concerned about Jurgen Klopp, and also very concerned in terms of if he was to get a 200 or 300 million budget to rebuild this team, by some of his comments. So the first one that came out, 4 performances were okay today. The 2 midfielders, Jordan Henderson and Fabinho, worked a lot. Now that to me straight away is a red flag, because Jordan Henderson yesterday was absolutely atrocious. If I was doing player ratings, he'd be lucky if he got a 1. He coughed up the ball so many times yesterday and gave the ball away, especially first half. He was absolutely shocking. But our manager thinks he was okay. Now that to me is a huge red flag. And Fabinho worked a lot. Well, of course Fabinho worked a lot, but what does that actually mean? He's our DM. Of course he worked a lot. He's supposed to be working a lot. So when I talk about this, the other 2 actually mentioned was Cody Gakpo, who, put in a shift, and Allison, who this season has had to put in a shift nearly every game to stop us getting absolutely rinsed at times. I've never seen a team at our level, or was at our level, to have a goalkeeper getting so many man of the matches. It's shocking. And he said, then he went on to say, if you want to get something at the Etihad, 14 or 15 players have to be on top form of their game. And that was not the case. Absolutely, that was not the case. The case yesterday was there was maybe 1 or 2. But then you have to ask yourself, why is that the case? You've had the team all week. You've had the opportunity to prepare the team. You've had all the time that you need. You know the players that are available to you. So why is this the case? Why is this the case that maybe 1 or 2 players showed up yesterday and the rest all went missing? And then who takes the responsibility for that? Well, naturally, the players have to take a certain amount of responsibility for that. But who else? Well, naturally, the manager has to take responsibility. So there's some of the red flags. The one thing I would say as well, and this will shock a lot of people, Jordan Henderson in an 8 is a game over. Forget about it. It's done, dusted. Should never happen. A matter of fact, and here's the shocker, here's the clanger I'm going to drop now. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain in an 8 would be better and more dynamic than Jordan Henderson in an 8. So there you go. I've said it. And everyone knows my feelings on Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. An unhappy Jurgen Klopp suggested Liverpool might not have beaten even a 10-man Manchester City after his side lost 4-1. Klopp, just to follow on from that before we talk about it, Klopp was asked about Liverpool's players surrounding the referee. This in relation to the Rodri situation. Simon Hooper, in the first half, wanting him to give Rodri a second booking for a foul. Would you agree or disagree? Doesn't really matter. It's immaterial now at this stage. The Liverpool manager said, I didn't see it good enough. Could he have got a second yellow? Yeah, probably. He will not get it now. I'm not sure we would have whether we would have wanted to play against 10 men. So this is our manager coming out, staring into a really, really tough week where we're trying to battle to get a top 4. So we really have a good chance of attracting in the targets we want as part of this rebuild. And he thinks we wouldn't have been even able to maybe battle against a 10-man Man City. And that there sounds all the warning bells for me. Very, very concerning. A 3-1 down, it's difficult to come back here. Of course it is. A 2-1 down, it's difficult to come back there. We had a situation for 3-2 when Robbo broke through, but apart from that, City could do what they wanted because the spaces were too big. So we were lucky they only scored one more. So a 3-1, it's really, really difficult to come back from that. And it is. City are an unbelievable side. No doubt about it. A 3-2, we had a chance to go 3-2 with the Robbo chance. Absolutely. But what were we doing about it? What were we doing? If this is unfolding and this is what he's seeing unfolding, the spaces were too big. What were you doing about it? Why didn't you change it up? Why didn't you do something? You know what I mean? Like it's very easy to be a Monday morning quarterback after the fact. But he's paid to do that job in the moment. And we've had too many of these conversations this season after the fact being Einstein, instead of sorting these things during the game and trying to have something to fight for. Now, look, even if he changed some of the things, would we have gotten that? Probably not. But good Lord, he's talking about City. If they wanted, they could have had their way with us. That's a damning statement from a manager. It really, really is. And that's does that sound like a manager who's given up? Does that sound like a manager who's waving the white flag and throwing in the towel and, sending a message maybe to the owners or whatever it is? I don't know, but these comments are crazy, you know what I mean? Then afterwards, we found out that the Liverpool's coach sustained damage on his return. I think a brick was thrown out a window and smashed. Totally unacceptable and stuff like that. But we have to be honest here as well. We greed away coaches in a certain way as well. And I'm not saying we brick them and damage them and stuff like that. So there's no room for that. And City condemned the actions and stuff like that. And then afterwards, we're hearing Man City obviously are disappointed. I've heard inappropriate chants. These are these, hateful chants that are coming out, And the Premier League is treating the issue of tragedy chanting as a priority and as a matter of urgency. I firmly believe that you're not going to be able to resolve that until sections of stands or whatever it is are banned. Because I think what's happened now is that stone is rolling down a hill. And until you take real extreme action against that, I'm not talking one or two people. I'm talking, unless you take real extreme action against that, you get video footage of the whole of that section, that if that's what they're singing about, and you take action and take that whole section and ban them, I don't think you're going to get the reaction that you want. And we can have Man City coming out saying they're disappointed. You can have the Premier League coming out saying it's a priority and a matter of urgency. It's been going on, and it's bullshit, and they need to sort it. And there's some of the things that came out, stuff post-match and stuff like that. No, but I'm really, really, really concerned at the moment. I think these players, I think top four is a no-no now. I think these players have thrown in the towel. I somewhat think Klopp has thrown in the towel. And I hope he's not hanging around waiting to be let go. I hope he truly believes he's going to be here next season to do this rebuild, because I think he's the man who needs to be given the opportunity to do it. But I just think he needs to get his shit together. I think he needs to think about what he's doing. I think he needs to take a real view of these guys, these players who are throwing him under the bus at times, week in, week out. And I think he needs to be really, really careful. These players will get you sacked. There's no doubt about it. These players will get you sacked. If you look at the body language of Trent, absolutely doesn't give a shit. If you look at Fabinho, his petulance, you even seen it with him yesterday. You look at Mo Salah's reaction yesterday, kicking the ball away. When have you ever seen Mo Salah react like that? There's a lot of kind of hairy kind of stuff going on there at the moment with players. And it's really, really, really concerning. And we're going to have to make a decision as well about the captaincy. Because our captain at the moment, whether you love him or you hate him, and we love him, and we're very happy with what he has done for us in the last few seasons and stuff like that. but we're going to have to make a lot of really big decisions at Liverpool at the moment. We're in a serious situation. I did say when I was kind of previewing the week ahead and stuff like that, talking about the Man City game, I did kind of predict maybe a draw. I was being kind of leaning on the positive side. But it's very simple. Our next 2 games, we need 6 points. Or it truly is really season over. I can't see us looking at Newcastle there today, the way they put United away. They're on a tear with Eddie Howe. Again, another team that's really, really together, playing really, really well. You look at how Brighton are playing. You look at how Brentford are playing. United are on a little bit of a sort of a tumble there at the moment, missing Casemiro, obviously. But when he comes back, it'll be business as usual for them, I would imagine. Spurs, what's going to happen there? Are they going to get a bit of a bounce with Stellini and Ryan Mason? What's going to happen there now that Conte's gone or the shackle's going to be off? Darren believes there'll be a looseness there and he expects them to beat Everton. So it's real troubling times at the moment, you know. And the one thing I would say as well, if we don't get 4th, just get 9th. I don't want 6th. I don't want 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, whatever it is. I have no interest in Thursday night football. I'd rather have the midweeks off and be able to prepare for the weekends, to be honest. It just doesn't interest me whatsoever. But it remains to be seen. I think, Reds, it's going to be a real tough end to the season. I think we're going to get more of the same, where we might get a performance and then 2 drop-offs and then another performance. This, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. This is the way it's been this season. But I can't see us getting that on Tuesday. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if Arsenal rock up to Anfield and do a number on us next Sunday either. And then we have to start asking serious questions. Not that we're not asking serious questions already, but I think we'll have to start asking serious questions and conversations about this manager and his assistant and everything else that's gone on. And I think it's about time the fans were given a little bit of truth here and, about what's going on at the club and some of the issues that are going on in the background that have affected us and, get some answers. Why haven't we bought a midfielder in nearly 5 seasons when we clearly needed it? Why haven't we been refreshing the squad? Who's responsible for that? Why hasn't it happened? Is there a breakdown between the owner and Klopp? Is there a breakdown between Klopp and the analytics and the sports science department? Why did it take 6 months nearly to get a club doctor in? Why have we accumulated all these injuries? Why do players last year who were absolutely world-class pushing for a quad now look like they're pensioners playing in a Legends team? What has been the approach? Why haven't we identified things? Lots and lots of questions to be answered in this post-mortem at the end of this season. And I have a funny feeling that some answers are going to come out that we'll be taking a very different view of certain people in the club. Until next time, folks, drop a like on the video. As always, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification. I will be back tomorrow night with the Monday mashup where we will review all the Premier League action, and there's also some tasty bits of news coming out there, as you heard already from Acers. Looks like Graham Potter has gone from Chelsea, so that's going to create a lot of conversational pieces tomorrow night. We'll also be talking about Arsenal and how they're marching forward, taking these games off week in, week out, standing up to the challenge and the pressures of Man City. We'll talk top 4, title race, relegation battle, the whole lot. Look at the relegation. Absolutely after changing again this weekend. Absolutely madness. Until next time, folks, thanks for joining me on the show. As always, I will talk to you again real soon.